Hey everyone, this is All Games New and Old. I'm David Rodriguez, and today I'm going to be reviewing Praga Caput Regni. This was published by Rio Grande Games in 2020 and designed by Vladimir Suchy. Now I have to admit, I'm not someone who claims to be an expert in Euro games, but to tell you all about the theme, I found someone who does claim to be an expert in Euro games, so I'll send it over to him. Well, actually, it's not a Euro game. What do you mean it's not a Euro game? I've heard reviewers call this the most Euro to ever Euro. It's a Euro game. I mean, look, you brought me on here because I'm an expert in Euro games. If you're such an expert, list them. List them? Nobody can do that. Yeah, I thought not. You know, you can tell, quite simply, it's not a Euro game. Look. There's no old grumpy man on the cover looking out over a European city. The box, it's not even beige. It's not even a beige box. This is not a Euro game. I'm sorry. I couldn't tell you anything about it. Euros don't have to be that way. You know what? Nah, look. Someday I swear I'll get a good guest on this show. I will. In the meantime, I'll tell you about Praga Caput Regni. So, in the year 1347, King Richard IV, well, he became king of Bohemia, which you might be familiar with from their Rhapsody, I guess. So, anyway, he's trying to build up the city, and he has some certain projects in mind. And as wealthy people in the area, you're tasked to try to help him and earn his favor. So you're going to be trying to build a bridge, you're going to be trying to build various structures, you're going to be trying to build a university. There's a lot going on in this game, and you're trying to get it all done. So I will tell you that this kind of game, the pure Euro, is a little outside of my normal wheelhouse. It's not that those games never sounded interesting to me or I didn't think they'd be good. It's just that my eye admittedly gets kind of attracted more to the, games with lasers and swords and whatnot. It just seems a little more exciting, so I tend to gravitate towards those when I'm looking for a new game. But when I started doing reviews, I decided I needed to expand my horizons a little bit, and I decided this might be a good place to start. So what did I end up thinking about this game? Well, I'll get to that, but first let me give you an overview of how the game plays. Alright, I've set up the board for Praga Caput Regni, and I set it up basically like a two-player game or even a solo game maybe. I haven't taken out every single token because I really don't need to have all the extras right now because I'm just giving you an overview. I'm going to try to keep this as an overview. I keep telling pretty much all or most of the rules to a game, and that's not really my intention. I just want to give you kind of an idea of some of the cool stuff and some of the actions you can do. This game is really, really large. It takes up a lot of space. I have it on a 3-foot by 4-foot mat. I'm going to try to pan this down here just so you can get an idea. It really takes up almost all of it. I have just enough room for a little desk tripod at the end of it, and then for some of the extra stuff along the side, but when you actually have players, that stuff would be taken up too. So it is quite a large footprint game. So I guess what I can do is I can show you. You can probably see around here, along the side here, there is a victory point track. And when it comes down to it, this game is all about getting victory points. You want to have the most. You're going to be scoring some during the game. And then at the end, there's further scoring where you might get a lot more points. So far, I've found that you really get probably at least as many points at the end as you do during the rest of the time. So you could think you're in the lead and maybe you're not, or you could think you're a bit behind and maybe you're not. So that's kind of neat. I like that. But let me kind of show you some of the different things that you can do. So on your turn, you're going to, excuse me, on your turn, you're going to take one of 6 actions. Now I'm going to show you every player has a board like this. And what this board really is more than anything is it's almost more of a reminder of what you're able to do. So I'm going to go over these actions, but I'm going to show you why I say that about this particular board, because in a way, they're not the most important thing other than to look at the possible actions and see what you can do. And I'll show you why they're not the most important thing. So that tile I showed you isn't actually the most important thing as far as choosing your action, because this wheel you see in front of you is. All these icons on these little, I guess I would call them spokes sticking out, match those same icons on your player board. So when you know what you're going to do, you're basically going to take one of these tiles, from around here and do one of the actions on it. They each have two. You're only going to do one of them. And then you're also going to take the bonus from over here on the inside part of the wheel. Another thing you might notice is that there's a red area, and each one of those, if you take from there, it's going to cost you a little bit of gold to take one of those. There's a green area that doesn't cost you anything, and there's a blue area that actually will give you a victory point bonus. So right now, just to make things easier, I'm going to show you a couple of the actions you can do that are fairly similar to each other. So I'm going to grab one of the tiles. We'll say I'm grabbing this one. And it has this this icon here. I'm trying to get this in focus here. That has the gold on it. And so we're going to say we're going to do the mining or gold action. So let me take you over to the special player board and I'll show you what that means. All right, so I've put this player board right on the main board, which is not usually how you'd have it, but just for sake of space and making it easy, that's what I've done. So as I talked before, I pulled out this tile and I'm going to show you that same thing on the board, on the little hex board you have here. So I picked the mining and gold action. I'm also going to explain to you the mining and gold. I'm also going to explain the quarry and stone action because they work exactly the same. So if I was doing that mining and gold action, I have two choices. I can take one gold, in which case I will move this tracker up because that's my gold tracker, and then I would upgrade my mines, which is this bottom tracker here, move it over one, and that would be it for that action. Or, if I had already done this, I could do the take gold, in which case I would take a gold piece for every space, because these all count as your mines, every space to the left of my marker there, and any rewards that are up here. So in this case, I would have 4 mines, and I'd also get a victory point here. So I would take 4 gold, move this up, and then also get a victory point. These trackers are really cool because when it gets to a certain point, you have this cube as a reminder, and if you go beyond that, you move it, you scoot that over, and you also get this reward in here, which I'll explain in a little bit. But that's kind of a neat thing. It's got all these cool reminders on this board to remind you how to do things or to make sure you don't do things. Or it's really a nice, intuitive board. So it's always a debate whether or not you want to get a lot of gold now or just kind of move this onwards. As you go down this track, you eventually there's a marker right here, which will show you a symbol for one of these little guys. This is in the river. And what you do then is you would put that in one of these spaces, either by your mine or by your quarry, either one, doesn't matter. And then when you collect gold or rocks and you get everything to the left, you would also get whatever's on this tile. So you only get one of those for each of those areas. If you get all the way to the very end, there's a spot on the board that has these seals that you can then claim. And some of them do cost things to claim them, but then at the end of the game, you would score the things that those give you. So kind of cool. It's a good way to get resources. Also, on this track, or on this board, I should say, there are 2 tracks. There is a it's some Charles University track and then the technology track. So as you may have seen when I did this, one of the words I got looks like a book. That is the technology track. So you would move this up this board to the next space, and anytime you cover one of like the books with a number on it, you'd get a technology tile over from the side of the game board. You basically take 3 of them. In this case, it's technology 1. So I take the top 3, I'd shuffle them around, and then, well, you don't have to shuffle them, but you look at them, you take the one you want, and then you put the other 2 face down back on the bottom of their pile. And technology 1 and 2 are basically things that will give you powers through the rest of the game, whereas technologies 3 and 4 will give you an immediate benefit. So it's kind of nice. And then with the university track, this can go up in a number of ways as well. And basically at the end of the game, you're going to multiply the victory point marker here. Some of them have 1 and some have 2, and they go all the way up to 3. You're going to multiply that by the space you got to here. So if you got all the way to the top 3, but you only got to 4 here, you're going to multiply 3 times 4, and you get 12 victory points at the end. So that's kind of a cool thing to boost up as well. So that's kind of how those 2 actions work. Again, the rock or the stone or quarry action works exactly the same as the gold. Same kind of track, same deal. You have a reminder here as well. Whichever one of these 2 gets that center one, doesn't matter which one, you take that off and then get the reward there. In this case, it's a gold window, and I'll kind of explain this a little bit too. But that's those 2 actions. So let's go and look at something else. So there are 3 actions on here that I'll show you that will allow you to take a tile So there's the build a structure action, which is this one. There is the build a wall action, which is this one. And there is the upgrade action, which is that one. So let me show you where those tiles are. All right, so when you pick one of those three actions, you're going to take a tile from the appropriate row. So these are the structures here on the bottom. We have the walls you can build there, and you have the upgrades to your actions that you have there. The furthest most right area is all specials, which you can take, but only if when you pick that tile off that wheel, it had the special icon as a bonus for you. If you didn't have that, then you cannot take from that pile. But if you do have it, you can, and usually they give you a little bit better reward than the others. So let me tackle these one at a time. Let's say you wanted to upgrade a skill, which is always great early on. So you would take, let's say I took this one, and I'm going to show you this on the board. So I would have this in front of me, but what I would do is I would take this and I would place that on top of where that previous same action was. Now, when I do that build a structure action, I also get a victory point right away. Also, you can see that little graduation hat. That lets you know that when you got that, you're able to go up on that Charles University track. You might also notice some of them have a little thing on the edge here. All right, I'm see if I can get this a little closer. See if I can actually get it to focus here. So you have this thing on the side, which some of them have. So what those are is those give you a chance at an adjacency thing. So let's say I got another upgrade, and it was like this. I'm going to put this in the wrong spot. This doesn't go on that thing, but just to show you. So now I have two icons touching each other, and what that means is I get both of those rewards when those two touch. So I'd get the silver and the stone. Now you can't rotate these later in the game, so you kind of have to plan ahead. The other possible adjacency thing I'll show you is with this red marker on the top, which I'm trying to get into focus here for you. There we go, red marker on the top. So if you were to get another one, again, these aren't the right actions for this, but I'm just trying to show you here what it's like. If you were to put another one down, so now you have two touching, which means you can take one of these red tokens, which I'll explain later. There's also blue ones. They work the same way. And those little adjacency things can be on really any of the tiles that you can get. So they all work basically the same way as far as how you want to put them together. So that is the skill upgrade action. The wall and the building action, you take them in the exact same way, but they work a little differently. So let me take a couple, I'm going to take a couple of these tiles so I can show you. So I'll pull these off, and then I'll show you where they get built. So down towards the lower half of the board, you have all of these hexes and whatnot, and those, of course, fit the tiles perfectly. So all those places that are empty hexes that don't have a building on them and don't have one of these plaza tokens, you can build on. Wherever you build, you're going to be adjacent to at least one plaza token. So I could build this down here, and again, you can face these any way you want. It doesn't matter. You just want to keep in mind that you might want to get those adjacency bonuses with other tiles. So as you put them down, you might get some other bonuses. So this one has a spot for a cube. So you're going to put one of your cubes there, and that means you have a claim on this plaza area, which doesn't come into effect right away, but it could later. So as you build, you can put this one down. This doesn't have that spot for the cube, and that means that you'll get a victory point immediately for every other tile that surrounds that plaza. So right now, it would basically get a couple because of itself, and then the one that was already built. You also, when you build it, you get whatever is in this green window. Oh, I don't know if I said, but some of these too have a cost to take the tiles. Like this is -3 gold, and that's -4 gold. But yeah, so we can build these all around. Now, if we got this completely surrounded by tiles everywhere that it could build, then you'd see who has the most claim on that plaza. So let's say that the blue player had 2 and maybe the red player had 1. So the blue player would get both of the rewards on this plaza. So it would get 3 victory points there, a gold window, and 5 victory points there. And then the red player would only get the bottom reward. So that's more or less how those work. At the end of the game, if you are only partially surrounding a plaza, or a plaza is only partially surrounded that you have a claim on, then you get the bottom reward at the end of the game. So that's another thing that you can score at the end of the game. So that's more or less how buildings work. Oh, one other thing. Some of them have a red marker here that represents the cathedral, or it might have a blue one that represents the hunger wall, which I'll show you those shortly. But when you get those, you're going to be able to move your cube along the structure accordingly. So I'll show you those in a little bit. Let me get to the other thing that you can build. Okay, so when you choose a wall tile, that works just like the other one, so I don't need to show you that whole bar again, but you're going to take it, and then you're actually going to build a wall around this this sort of action reminder thing you have. So again, you have adjacencies, you have things that you can get as soon as you place it, you have costs that you may have to pay in order to take that tile, and you're just going to basically put these around, trying to get more of those markers or any other special things that having an adjacency would get you. So this is a little weird because you're like building a wall around your... It really seems like a reminder thing to me, but anyway, that's how the wall works. I want to show you one other thing on this tile. There are a couple things that you can do at any point during your turn. So you get these silver or gold mirrors throughout the game. So you can spend 2 of those to move yourself up a space on the cathedral or the hunger wall. Or you can spend a silver and a gold or 2 golds to give yourself an extra action. So when you take an extra action, you don't pull one of those tiles off of the wheel. You just say you're going to do whatever action it is, and then you just do it. So there's not an extra bonus, but you get to go ahead and do that action. So that's a little reminder of that. So that's how those actions work, and I believe we have one more. And that one is this one right here, which is the King's Road action. So let me show you how that works out. So you're to start the game with these little, they're not quite meeples, there's like little markers a little bit off this board here. But as soon as you do the King's Road action, you can move it to the first stop on the King's Road. And there's basically 3 kind of regular stops, and then there's 2 others that I'll show you later. But so if I was playing the blue and I took that action, I would go ahead and move here. And you immediately can get a couple bonuses. So in this case, I can get either 2 stone or 2 gold. And then if I have an egg, you can actually spend that egg to do either the quarry or the mining action. So it's kind of cool. You get to do something that's usually pretty impactful right away. Those eggs are really only valuable on this part of the game, but they can be very impactful. So as I said, there's 3 steps there until you get to a more unusual step, and I'll show you that. All right, so let's say you've gotten to the 3rd step already on the King's Road action, and now you want to go further. So you can spend an egg to do the 4th step, which is this one here. And what you're going to do is you're going to take the top 3 tiles, you're going to look at them and pick the one you want. So I'm just going to take the one off the top to make it easier, and you're going to basically put one of these on the bridge. So when you put that there, you not only get the rewards that are shown on your silver tile, you also get the rewards for whatever you covered up. So you're going to put that there. That's basically step 4 of the King Road action. And you're going to put your little player figure right on top of there. So there's that. And then if you were to do just one more, you can then basically do the same with the gold one. You take one of these and it'll give you a reward basically at the end of the game. So you would take that and do the action accordingly to what it says. So it's kind of neat, neat way to do things. It's kind of fun to build that bridge up. So anyway, that is all the basic actions. I'm going to show you something else that happens at the end of the turn, and I have to show you those 2 structures. All right, so you may have wondered, okay, why is there this wheel? It's kind of weird. Well, if you remember that tile we took at the very beginning, now when my turn is over, I'm going to rotate this over 1 space. I'm going to take the tile I just took and put it on that first space of the red part of the wheel. So the more recently used actions will cost people more to use, whereas if an action doesn't get used, it actually will start eventually giving them bonuses. So that's kind of neat. It's a really neat way to help you kind of decide if you really want to take a certain action or not. As you go on, this wheel is going to keep spinning turn after turn. Eventually, it will drop right here. And what that means is this little cube is going to get moved over. And depending on how many players you have, that can symbolize the midpoint of the game. At that point, you take all of the tiles for the upgrades, the wall, and the structure building. You remove those, and you get basically the Act 2 tiles that are the same kind of tiles, but they usually have a bigger reward attached to them. So things really ramp up towards the end of the game. All right, so let me show you those 2 structures I mentioned earlier. All right, so here are the 2 structures I was talking about. This is another thing that can get you points at the end of the game. So you have the hunger wall. That sounds like it's a terrible thing, but I guess it was actually built to give people a chance to do some work and get some money if they needed to be fed. So kind of important, and I have a feeling because this was a very long time ago, maybe things were actually still pretty terrible, but it sounds well-intentioned anyway. And then this is the cathedral. You'll notice that you have cubes that start in the very lower inner corner. So when you build a building or a structure that has for instance, the hunger wall icon, you will then move your tile to the left. And if you pay those 2 silver windows or mirrors, or no, windows, yes, you can move up. And same over here. The only difference is on the cathedral, when you move up past these barriers, you have to pay. So this one you have to do minus a gold and minus a stone. And to go up this one, it's minus a gold and minus 2 stones. But you end up getting more points. And so what'll happen then at the end of the game is you'll get victory points based on what row you're in. So like if I got all the way up to here, for instance, I would get 13 victory points at the end of the game. And then you'd also get victory points based on what column you're in. So if I was in this column here, I would multiply that 3 victory points by the number of the little red tokens I have. And the hunger wall works the same way, but you have blue tokens instead. So that's basically how that works. It's another thing to kind of boost your scores at the end of the game. All right. So let's say you've reached the end of the game. You've each taken your 16 turns, which is you're going to be helped to be reminded of by that wheel and the movement of that beige or just wood colored cube. And this is going to tell you how you can then score more victory points. You've been tracking some things around the board as you went. So then here it's going to show you kind of what I told you before. If you have a claim on a plaza that is not fully surrounded, you would then get the lower rewards. You would also get victory points based on the Charles University track, Charles University track multiplied with the technology track. You would get victory points based on those 2 structures that I just was talking about. You would also get victory points for how many wall sections you have built. So if you had 3 wall sections, you would get 4 victory. If you had 4 wall sections, you'd get 10. And if you had 6, you'd get 18. For the 5th one, you would score any victory points based on any of these seals that you claimed or anything you have on those gold tiles. And then finally, if you have leftover eggs, so you would get some. So if you had 1 leftover egg, you'd get 1 victory point. For 2, you'd get 3. For 6, for 3, you'd get 6. And for 4 more, you'd get 10. And that's basically the end of the game scoring. So that's how you can amass a lot at the very end. And that's the basic overview of how Praga Caput Regni is played. I hope that play overview was helpful to you. Now we want to go into some of our thoughts on this game, but before we do that, I want to talk about an aspect of the theme that I don't think I mentioned in the rest of the video, and I'm baffled that I didn't because it's one of my favorite little factoids in this game. You might have been wondering why eggs are an important part in this game at all, and that is because back when the bridge was being built, the king asked the surrounding areas to bring raw eggs over to have them mixed into the mortar to help strengthen it. I don't know if that's true. It's kind of like a legend, but the bridge has been there for 600 years, so if that's the case, apparently eggs are pretty awesome for building. Who knew? So, I know we have a lot of thoughts on the theme of this game. At least I know I do. But I'm going to let you talk about them first.
It's a very Euro game, and all the way through, from the artwork to the gameplay to the theme. So if you like Euro games, I can't imagine you wouldn't like this game.
Definitely. Like I said at the beginning of the video, it's definitely outside my wheelhouse. I go for, aliens and dragons and that sort of thing. Usually, it's, you're building Prague. That's what you're doing in this game to impress the king. So I think it captures it really well, though. Everything is somewhat abstracted, but I do feel like as I'm playing, I'm building the buildings in the city. I'm helping build the bridge. I'm helping construct the hunger wall, etc. The only thing that I thought was really weird was building the walls around your little like action reminder tile thing, because it's like you're creating a shell around the concept of what you're capable of. To me,
Yeah, it kind of felt like we're each building our own castle with a city in between us.
yeah, and maybe that's the point. I don't think it specifically says, but I thought this was supposed to be like a wall for Prague itself, but I guess they can. I suppose there wasn't really a way to integrate that onto the board and have it not make the board even more humongous than it already is. So I suppose they had to do that, and it's fine. I'm not really knocking it for that. It's just sort of an unusual thing, because I was like, this is so odd, because it's this weird, totally detached thing from everything else. But other than that, I really feel like I'm helping build Prague, or at least a city. And what's nice is the instructions in there. There's a section in the back. There's some stuff throughout, but in the back it talks about each part of the board, basically, and a little bit of the history of it. Nothing super in depth. So all the ideas in here actually came from history, so you can kind of get an idea of more what it was like. I really love that kind of thing. I know some people don't specifically care, but it really helps. It helps me kind of imagine what's going on, and that's something that I really like a lot. What did you think about the art for this game?
It's very old European art style, which fits great with the theme of the game. It's not really a art style that I'm normally drawn to, so just looking at the box, even though it's a pretty box, it's not really something that I would probably pick up and look at to play, because it's not an art style that is drawn to me. So
yeah, I agree. I mean, I do think the art on the front is really well done. Again, it's not a subject for the art that I'm usually like super into. Other than that, the board, when you look at it as an overall thing, it looks really excellent. Just very pretty board. I like the little 3D features that are on it. But all the little people, yeah, it's a very old looking art style, which, not super exciting to me either, but it makes sense. It'd be weird if they, took the current hottest comic book artist or did an anime style. I guess that would have been fine, but it wouldn't have been really quite fitting for what the game is. So, and I think for the look that they were going for, I think they did it really, really well. So what do you think about the component quality of this?
the components are really well done, from the spinning board to the dials on our personal playmats, to the recessed pieces for the blocks, is all really done. Even the tiles are made out of a really good heavy cardboard and not just cardstock. The few minor issues that I had on the action tile wheel, for one of the counters on what phase you're in, the block will drop down, and that where it starts to drop down it starts in the space before it's supposed to drop down. Mm-hmm. So if you're not paying attention, it's easy to have it drop down before it's supposed to.
Yeah, it's a little weird. Like, I think most of that, little hole it creates is in the right spot, but it does start to kind of dip down a little bit before that. So at first I was like, well, did I build this wrong? But I don't see how I possibly even could have. It's just, you just attach it by a little hole thing in the middle. So that is just how it is. Maybe there was a reason behind it, but I think it would have been easier if they just kept that entire little divot in there, entirely in that one spot on the wheel. But
and then when assembling the personal game boards, the dials for the gold and stone.
Yeah.
You have to pay attention when you're assembling it. My board was not assembled correctly, and so luckily when before we started playing, I saw that it wasn't right, so it would have made the game a lot more difficult for me.
And she still would have won. That's the thing. She still would have won. I know how these things go. Actually, we've got about a 50-50 win-loss thing on this one, so I don't want to play again because Because there's a chance that
I now have my strategy.
She has a strategy down that works, and I'm afraid that she's just going to overtake me from now. I should be happy with this because I don't think any other game I've even come close to winning half the time. But we will play again, I'm sure. But anyway, that's just one of those things. Yeah, the components. I love that action wheel thing. That might be one of the coolest things I've seen in a game as far as choosing your actions, because I like that the most recently taken action actually starts costing other people to do it. And you could still do it if you want to, but you have to decide if it's worth it. I like that it starts giving you an incentive to take an action that hasn't been taken in a while. I just think it's really smart. And it might actually start informing someone's strategy. I don't know whether or not it should. That might depend on the specific game. But yeah, that is such a cool system, and it's done so well, and it integrates on the board really nicely. Those 3D pieces, like the hunger wall and the, I keep saying temple, I'm not sure that's the right word, but anyway, the chapel, those you do have to assemble, and it does recommend using glue. Don't glue on the back part of it, because you will never get those in the box and close the box again. Just, reattach that every time you play. If you don't like doing that, if that seems like a pain to you, you actually don't have to build those. All of those parts of those items are actually on the board as well. You could just play it right off the board itself and have it be totally flat. I just like putting them on there because I think it looks cool. They do sort of obscure a part of the victory point track, which wasn't a problem for us until the end of the game scoring, because we just hadn't gotten that high up in points. I don't want to say it's not possible, because there's probably somebody out there who's doing it, but at that point too, you can also just kind of carefully move those off the board and keep track of your victory points that way. So not too big a deal. But yeah, if you saw that and you're like, oh, I don't want to build those, you don't actually have to. The only thing you really have to do is get the wheel stuck on the board, and then put the two wheels on the player boards, and that's not really too difficult a thing, and they seem to work really well. So
I do like on the temple and the hunger wall, because they are 3D, so there's different levels. When you're going up, when it's time that you have to pay to go up, it's actually a physical jump. So it helps remind you that you have to pay to go up to that next level.
Yep. And when you build them correctly, there's actually a reminder on that wall. I didn't have it built correctly. I don't know how. I missed that thing. So we actually thought on the hunger wall at first that you didn't have to pay to go up, and I think I even said that in my overview, and I put a little correction in there. But there is actually a little thing to cover it up so it doesn't look. It looks more like the other piece. That'll remind you that you have to pay a gold and a stone or whatever it is to go up that extra spot. But yeah, overall, I mean, I don't think in terms of other similar type of games that I've seen, I don't think the components of this one can be beaten by nearly anyone. So let's see. I guess gameplay. Is that where we're at?
Yep.
Yeah. What were your thoughts on the gameplay of this one?
So the first couple times that we played it, because there's so many different paths to victory that you can focus on in this game, it kind of made it where it's like, okay, I'm going to focus on... If you focus on everything, I don't think you'll do very well. I think you need to focus on just 2, maybe 3 strategies, and then kind of ignore the other ones. You can do them, but I wouldn't focus on making... If you haven't been doing it, I wouldn't worry about it. So I like games where I feel like as I'm playing it, I can learn the game better, and a part of that comes from me being dyslexic, so I don't typically read the rule book first, so I kind of rely on him to read the rule book and then explain, and he normally plays the game a little bit, and then to really understand the rules, and then he explains it to me. So I kind of always feel like I'm starting off the game with a little bit of a disadvantage. I normally pick up on it pretty quickly, but I like being able to play a game and be like, oh, okay, especially if I lost the game, I like being able to at least think about what I did so that I can improve the next time I play. And the first few times that we played it, I wasn't getting that from this game. It was actually almost feeling like a game of luck. I had to be... If I picked a strategy, I had to make sure that the tile that I needed to do that strategy was out, and... finally, after we were playing, we were just, when we started to set up to play our last playthrough, something kind of just suddenly clicked with me, and I came up with a strategy and tried it out, and it worked really well for me. And for me, that what it was is don't go into the game going, okay, I'm gonna focus on this and this. I'm gonna go start off the game with no strategy and just pick tiles that I think will be beneficial for me. And then for that first turn of, for that first little chapter of the playthrough. And then after that, then I looked at my board and saw what I had set myself up to be able to focus on well. And for that game, it was building walls and one other thing. And so then that, after I got my foundation set up, then I looked at what options I should focus on to try and win the game. And that worked out really well for me. Maybe it was a fluke, but I think that is a good way to approach the game.
Yeah, definitely. It's you really did awesome in that last game, better than either of us has done. It felt like for a while we were kind of just going back and forth, but staying sort of in the same ballpark. But you really pulled ahead with what you did in that the most recent game. I am usually the one that learns and teaches the game, and then she beats me at them a lot. That's that's how that goes. But that's okay. I like I said, I started out with the solo version of this game, and the solo version's great. You're not doing anything different than you are in the multiplayer game, which is a great way to learn. And your opponent character, all you're doing is you're taking off the furthest along tile on the wheel, rotating it and putting it on the most recently played. That's it. So your opponent's not really doing all the same things. You're just trying to get a good score. And what this game does in the rulebook, which every game that comes out that has you just playing to beat your own score should do, is it tells you what a good score is. A simple sentence that says, we think 140 is a good score. I haven't gotten anywhere near 140 at all, but that's great because now I know, okay, I have a lot of room to improve. I hate it when it says, hey, just beat your own score. Okay, cool. Am I doing well? Am I doing poorly? I don't know. Am I a worthy opponent for myself? I don't know. For God's sakes, give us some points. And this one does, which is great. I even like it better if you do something like, if you guys have played Cartographers, where it has a whole, like a little chart thing where if you're from this score to this score, it's this, and this score to this score, it's something else. And that's even better because then you feel like you progress up there. But this gives me something to shoot for. 140 points. Seems impossible. Probably isn't. But, it's going to be a ways off for me, I think, but I'm going to keep trying. This isn't, because it's a Euro game, it's not like some crazy raucous game. People aren't going to be jumping and screaming. You're not going to wave those hands in the air. It's just a really thinky game. It has a little bit of frustration in the background of it, a good frustration, because you're sometimes not going to be able to pull off what you want to, or you decide it's too costly to do it. And so you may have to do something different with your turn than you originally planned. And that, like I said, that frustration's good. I did find, at least at the level of skill that I'm at now, because we played it back to back one time, and our estimation of the game, for both of us, I think, dropped. Because I think having that specific frustration for that long was maybe a little too much. I think once we're better at the game, that may not be an issue, and a back-to-back play may not be such a bad thing, because it's by no means a short game, but it's not ridiculously long. It's, probably a couple hours max. I think we were doing it about an hour and a half for the most part. But yeah, there is that, it's not necessarily the game that you want to play over and over again in a row, although it'd be nice too, because the setup and teardown is there's a lot of pieces. So it's tempting if you're going to play it again in a day, maybe leave it out unless you really need that space for something. But yeah, I really like this gameplay. Going in not having a concept of even if I would like it at all, because it's so purely a Euro game, and I know there's a lot of crossover now compared to several years back, where games have a little bit of Euro, a little bit of Ameritrash gaming, but this one's really pure Euro, which is not what I usually get, but it's good enough that it's got me wanting to try other Euro games. It makes me want to try more things by this designer, so that's pretty high praise for the game, I think. Anything else you want to add to gameplay or?
Yeah, like, uh, again, this might be because of my dyslexia. The skill board, the tokens that you get, when you put them on your board, you're not necessarily putting them upright. There's like little symbols on the side that you want to try and line up with other ones. So you could be putting them sideways, even upside down. And for me, that made it, even though it's just symbols and it's not reading words, it still made it hard for me to just glance at my board really quickly and see what it was that I got when I did a certain action. And so it kind of made it take a little bit longer because I had to like really look at the board and make sure that I was reading the tiles correctly.
Yeah, because those tiles can have a few different things on them. Because I mean, they really add stuff as you get those upgrades, and you, depending on what you've done in the game, you can't necessarily spin your board to look at it better because you probably there's chances are you built some wall sections around it, and those they're not attached or on top of anything, so you'd have to spin those too. It's a little complicated. I suppose you could do it. But yeah, you are looking at your bonuses at sort of weird angles sometimes. So I could see where that could be kind of a difficulty for some folks. I don't know. Any other thoughts as far as gameplay?
I think that's it for gameplay.
All right. I will say too. I don't know. Did I talk about character interaction? We did a few takes, so I don't know. So there's. This game is not a game with a lot of player interaction, excuse me. In the most recent game we played where she was ahead, I wasn't even aware of what she was doing over there. I thought I was doing really great. And then I looked over at her at the end of the game and she had all kinds of upgrades and walls built up and all sorts of tokens. I was like, oh my god, when did this even happen? Because you really have to focus on what you're doing more than what somebody else is doing. You're not going to be picking tiles specifically because it's going to mess up somebody else. It's just not that kind of game. So if you have players that don't like heavy like backstabby or hate drafting or any of that kind of stuff, and maybe you can be a more aggressive player, they'll probably be willing to play this with you even if you've been a dick in previous games. So that's kind of nice. It's almost, I don't want to call it multiplayer or solitaire. I don't think it's quite to that level, but you are going to be much more focused on what you're doing and just trying to maximize that rather than being like, oh, how can I mess this situation up over here? There's only like a few ways you could ever do that.
Chasing their tails if you're trying to mess other people up on purpose. There's always both players can benefit from this tile, so whoever gets it first gets it, but trying to be like, oh, well, this person could really use this tile, so I'll take it. It's not really going to benefit you very much, so.
Yeah, you only have the 16 turns, and that may or may not sound like a lot to you, but they all feel pretty vital, especially towards the end. You're like, oh my gosh, I only have a few turns to get, whatever done that you're trying to get done or maximize your points.
In the first, probably 5 turns or so, it's really just kind of building your foundation for the game. So there's really only about 10 turns where it's really affecting your score a lot. So
yeah, definitely. Should we do our final scores for this game?
Yep.
Okay. So, like I said, this game has gotten me interested in doing other Euro games and other things by this designer, and it's hard to find think of any sort of higher praise I could give it than that. I mean, going into something where I wasn't even sure I would like it at all, coming out really wanting to try more and to get better at this one, that's fantastic. I think because of that, I'm going to give it an 8, which is a great score. And honestly, it wouldn't shock me if, as we play more and as I get better at it and things start clicking with me more, my estimation might even rise with this game. But today, so far, it's an 8, and that's fantastic, and I'm looking forward to playing it again.
So yeah, I would agree. I would give it 8 too. I think if you really like Euro games, it's probably even a 9. If you don't like Euro games, maybe a 7, but it's still a really solid game. The fact that it was frustrating me it is a game that has a little bit of frustration, but I still wanted to play it even though it was frustrating me. Like I said, I like games where I feel like I can learn from the game and figure out better ways to play it, and I wasn't feeling that the first few times, but so I was getting frustrated with that, but I still wanted to play it because I felt like I was wrong about that. And I think I finally figured out what it is I need to do to be able to improve on playing the game. So because of that, I think it speaks a lot of volumes that I was getting frustrated with the game, but I still wanted to keep playing it.
Mm-hmm. And that was the day when fate decided I would never win at this game again. That's okay.
You're used to it.
I am actually used to it. Yes. So that's basically it. We both thought this game's really great, and that is no lie. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please like and subscribe. Click the little bell icon so you can be alerted when I come out with a new video. I've started to do unboxings as well, so those will be coming out fairly regularly as long as I have something to unbox. And I look forward to seeing you all next time around the table at All Games New and Old. Bye.
Bye.
See if we get this a little closer and have it actually still be. Oh, hello. All right, what is happening in this art? Because the big guy, he's practically on the same plane as the little guy. He might be a little further forward, but not that much. He's huge. That guy's small, and he's like wielding. He's got nothing else to hit. I think we're witnessing a giant killing a regular person, or maybe a regular person killing a child. I don't know. He's got a plumber situation going on over here. I don't know what's going on. This is a... I don't know. I wish there were some giants in this game. That's creepy. So Praga Caput Regni takes place in... Ooh, dang it. 1347. Oh, God. Okay. I had it until I didn't have it. That's what happened. All right.
All right, quick, go.
All right. 8! Now? We're doing that again. Sorry. Alright. I couldn't remember the word. I looked like I'm not to play run through. That's I like to know. Okay. Alright. Good. As you were saying.